Today, we're going to be covering the top 10 most valuable Walter Johnson baseball cards. 3 of these sets I didn't even know about until I started researching, so make sure to stay tuned on the video so that we learn a little bit more about some rare cards produced in the 1910s and 1920s. That being said, if you don't know who Walter Johnson is, I'm going to say this right now. He's probably the greatest pitcher of all time. Across his career, he had 110 shutouts, 417 wins, 531 complete games, and 3,500 strikeouts. One thing I found really interesting when researching is he was the only member of the 3,000 strikeout club until Bob Gibson joined him in the 1970s. Shows you how dominant of a pitcher he was. Now today it's kind of commonplace for the seasoned pitchers make it to the 3,000 club, but back then strikeouts were a luxury. You just really didn't see that. Across his career, he accumulated 165 WAR, had a 147 ERA plus and 1.06 whip. We're going to start off with one modern set before we go back to the early 1900s, and that's the 2001 SP Legendary Cuts autos. Now this set is really cool. You can find some extremely tough autographs in here. In fact, there was even a Cap Anson, which is less than 5 of them out there. I talked about it in my Cap Anson video, so make sure to check that one out after this video. However, Walter Johnson had 113 copies, but even with 113, they aren't that common to find. I kind of struggled finding exact comps or evaluation, so I kind of approximated 2,500 to 3,500 based off of some other sales. There was another 2001 autograph numbered to 3 from a different set that sold for $3,000. Our first pre-war card is going to be the T205 gold border. Now these cards look amazing in person. They speckle and everything like that. But the only problem is they damage really easily. So finding them in high grade is tough. Not only is it 100 years old, but they're very condition sensitive. A 2 of this card usually sells around $2,000 with a 5 going up 10,000 plus. And good luck finding a high graded example. In the 8 spot, we have the 1916 through 20 big head error card. So on this card, they actually say Johnston with a T instead of Johnson without a T. And it's kind of a unique card across Walter Johnson's career. I don't think the design is that attractive, but some people do collect them. Most of them that you're going to find are going to be A's because they are hand cut cards, but a 3 has sold for $2,600. Up next, we have the 1917 Boston Shore Collins McCarthy. These have been pretty tough to source. If you aren't familiar with the set, this is where the Roger Hornsby rookie card is. Extremely expensive example, but even other Hall of Famers are expensive as well, like Walter Johnson. A 2.5 sold for $1,800 back in 2017. This is going to be the only cabinet card on this list, and if you aren't familiar with cabinet cards, they're extremely large. Some people don't classify them as cards, others do. It's kind of a gray area. I'm still going to put it on this list for you guys, and that is the 1911 Turkey Red. Absolutely beautiful card set. They had both baseball players and boxers in there. You can find like Sam Langford and Jack Johnson, as well as like Walter Johnson and Tris Speaker. I really wish these cards were standard size because I would definitely have them in my PC, but they are expensive because of the imagery that are on them. A 2 is about $3,000 and a 3 is over $5,000. Before we go into the honorable mentions, I'm going to ask you guys to please subscribe. It's absolutely free. If you want to see more content like this on the channel, as well as card show vlogs every single week, I'm traveling out every weekend across the United States to buy some really cool cards, and videos every Friday talking about fake sports cards. So I wanted to start off the honorable mentions with cards that look like the T206 on the front, but are different on the back. And those are the coupon backs and also the red cross. Some of these are extremely tough to find. Coupon backs have 3 different print runs, like 1909, 10, 14 through 16, and then 1919. So I felt it is best just to put these in the honorable mentions. I will be talking about T206 a little bit later. We have the 2012 National Treasure game used baseball cards. So National Treasure actually used a game used baseball from a shutout that Walter Johnson pitched. I think it was 1923, and made 24 different cards from it. It is a really expensive card to find. There's a few different ones in the set. All of them are numbered to 5 or less. Since they don't sell that often, I have to kind of estimate what value it would be. I'd probably say anywhere from $500 to $2,000, but they are extremely rare, and there's people that want to do the whole Hall of Fame run with either relics or autographs. I eventually need to get one of those in my collection, so if you see one, let me know, but it is an expensive card. And lastly, no sales data on this one, but it definitely would have made like the top 5 on this list if one is going to sell at auction. And that's a 1912 E300. This is kind of the, I could be wrong here, but this is the most expensive E brand. Some of the other Hall of Famers are going for 5 to 6 figures depending on condition wise. And they're just really unique cards for the era. The sizing is different. You can look at like the borders, the size of the card in general, and a lot of the pictures are unique to only that set instead of reusing the imagery. We're going to start off the top 5 with a card that's really, really cool, and that's a 1916 D381 Ferguson Bakery. And there's one sale of the Walter Johnson. The tab was actually removed on it. So if there's one with the tab, it's probably about a $15,000 to $20,000 card, if not more. The one without the tab sold slightly under $10,000. In the 4th spot, we have the Texas Tommy. This is another card that I had no idea that existed until really researching and diving deep into Walter Johnson cards. There's 2 different versions of this card, a Type 1 and also a Type 2, but both are still expensive and in today's environment are $10,000 plus. Real quick, before we jump into the top 3, take a look at the Walter Johnson baseball card article that we have on the website. We go over about 25 different cards in the article, so a lot of different stuff I couldn't bring up in this video. The link is down below in the description and also in the comments section. One of the most popular Walter Johnson pre-war cards is his T206s. I'm going to only talk about his portrait. He has 2 different poses within the set, and also I should let you guys know there's a ton of different backs which all really change the value of the cards. The problem with all the different backs is some of them don't sell for quite a while, and the market has changed so much over the last 2 or 3 years. So like with a standard back on a Walter Johnson portrait on a 1, you're probably going to look anywhere from like 12 to 1300 all the way to 2500, depending on how many creases, depending if there's any paper loss or anything like that. What was really cool is a few years ago, a PSA 9 actually sold at auction for $135,000, just to show you guys the range on that specific example. At number 2, this is an extremely tough card to find in good shape. And that is the 1914 Cracker Jacks. I know there's 2 different years of Cracker Jacks, 14s and 15s. If you turn them over on the back, you can see the differences on how they were printed. Easiest way to tell. But the 14s are a lot scarcer because they were actually put in with the treat. The 1915s you could actually get through the mail. So a lot of the time you're going to find 1915 Cracker Jacks in a lot higher grade in comparison to the 1914s. So the 14s have a much lower population report as well. A 5 has recently sold for $84,000, which kind of shocked me. I knew Walter Johnson cards were expensive in the Cracker Jack set, but I didn't expect that auction result. And lastly, a lot of you guys probably don't know what number 1 is because I've talked about the Cracker Jack and the T206, but that's a T204 Romley. And honestly, this is a grail card that I really want in my collection, but it's expensive, especially over the last few years, a few different sales. So like I saw a beater 1 that sold like 1 or 2 years ago for $3,000, but it looked really bad. There was a nice looking 2 that sold for $25,000, which surprised me, but an 8 sells for $252,000. What makes these cards special is they're embossed. They're a little bit of a 3D element to it, but also you have the gold from the T205s mixed in with the card, and it's really scarce. And if you also consider that one of Walter Johnson's rookie cards, it has everything going for it to make it extremely expensive. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to watch this one right here where I go over Cap Anson's top 10 most valuable baseball cards.